The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a sound like thunder. Ambassador Lisa Carter walked through them, her black shoes clicking on the polished metal floor. She had been to this place many times before, but today felt different. Today felt final. The chamber was huge, bigger than any building on Earth. The ceiling stretched up so high that Lisa could barely see the top. Around the circular room, dozens of alien species sat in their assigned seats. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others had skin that glowed with strange colors. A few looked almost human, but their eyes were too large or their faces too sharp. Lisa took her place at the small podium in the center. Her hands shook slightly as she gripped the sides. She had practiced this speech 100 times, but now the words felt heavy in her mouth. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice echoing in the vast space. "I stand before you today to request that humanity be included in the Centennial Trade Summit. We have much to offer the galaxy, and we believe that working together will benefit all species." A low rumbling sound filled the chamber. It took Lisa a moment to realize that some of the aliens were laughing. The sound was not pleasant. It reminded her of grinding metal. Prime Minister Zexthul of the Vorthok Empire rose from his seat. He was tall, maybe 9 feet, with gray skin that looked like stone. His 6 eyes focused on Lisa, and she felt very small under his gaze. "Human," he said, and the way he said the word made it sound like an insult. "Your species has been part of galactic society for only 3 years. 3 years. Some of us have been members of this council for 3,000 years. You are children playing in the garden of adults." More rumbling laughter echoed through the chamber. Lisa felt her face grow hot, but she forced herself to stay calm. "We may be young," she replied, "but we have already proven our worth. Our medical advances have saved lives on 12 different worlds. Our engineers helped rebuild the space stations, destroyed in the Titan Nebula disaster. Our diplomats have solved 3 border disputes that had lasted for decades." "Accidents," said Council Speaker Theiss of the Alterian Collective. She was beautiful in an alien way, with silver skin and hair that moved like water. "Lucky accidents. You stumbled into solutions that we could have found ourselves given time." "But you didn't find them," Lisa said, her voice growing stronger. "We did, and we shared them freely with everyone. We asked for nothing in return, except to be treated as equals." A new voice spoke from the shadows at the back of the chamber. It belonged to Elder Quintar of the Ancient Harmony, a species so old that no one remembered where they came from. "Equals." The word came out like a hiss. "You believe 3 years of existence in space makes you equal to civilizations that have traveled the stars since before your planet had life?" Lisa looked around the chamber. Every alien face stared back at her with the same expression. Some showed disgust. Others showed amusement. None showed respect. "The Centennial Trade Summit will determine the economic future of this galaxy for the next 100 years. Prime Minister Zexthul continued. "The decisions made there will affect trillions of beings across thousands of worlds. We cannot allow such important matters to be influenced by a species that still fights wars on its home planet." "Those wars are ending," Lisa protested. "Human, unity is stronger than it has ever been. We have colonies on 47 worlds, and they all work together in peace." 47 worlds, Speaker Theiss repeated with a laugh. "The Alterian Collective controls 47 solar systems. Your entire civilization could fit in one of our smaller cities." The chamber erupted in more laughter. Lisa felt tears beginning to form in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She would not give these beings the satisfaction of seeing her cry. "The vote has already been taken," Elder Quintar announced. "Humanity will not be invited to the Centennial Trade Summit. This decision is final." Lisa stood in silence for a long moment. The laughter died away, and the chamber became quiet. She could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. "You are making a mistake," she said finally. "Humanity has always found a way to be heard when others try to silence us. This will not be different." "Is that a threat?" Prime Minister Zexthul asked, his 6 eyes narrowing. "It is a promise," Lisa replied. She turned and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. No one spoke as she left. The massive doors closed behind her with the same thunderous sound. Outside the chamber, Lisa allowed herself to lean against the wall. Her whole body was shaking now. She had known this moment might come, but she had hoped that reason would win. Over prejudice, she had been wrong. Her communication device buzzed. She looked at the screen and saw a message from Captain Jake Morrison aboard the UHS Discovery. How did it go? The message read. Lisa typed back quickly. They said no. We are officially unwelcome at the adults' table. The reply came within seconds. Then maybe it's time to build our own table. Lisa smiled for the first time that day. Jake Morrison was a soldier, but he was also a dreamer. If anyone could find a way to make the galaxy listen to humanity, it would be him. She made her way through the corridors of Station Nexus Prime. The station was huge, home to millions of beings from hundreds of worlds. Everywhere she looked, she saw species working together, trading, talking, laughing. But as she passed, conversation stopped. Beings turned away from her or whispered behind her back. The word had already spread. Humanity had been rejected. They were outcasts now, tolerated but not accepted. Lisa reached the human section of the station. It was small compared to the areas assigned to other species, but it felt like home. The walls were painted in earth colors, and the air smelled like the forests of her childhood. She found Dr. Helen Brooks in the medical lab, packing up her research. Helen looked up as Lisa entered, and the hope in her eyes died when she saw Lisa's expression. They said no. Helen said. It was not a question. They said no. Lisa confirmed. Helen continued packing her equipment. 3 months of work, she said quietly. 3 months preparing presentations that could have helped millions of beings across the galaxy. Medical techniques that could cure diseases that have plagued some species for centuries. I know, Lisa said. I tried to tell them. They don't want to hear it, Helen replied. They don't want to admit that the young species might know something they don't. Lisa watched her friend pack away research that could have changed the galaxy. The injustice of it burned in her chest like a fire. Her communication device buzzed again. This time the message was from Jake Morrison, but it was sent to the entire human diplomatic corps. Emergency meeting in 1 hour. Conference room 7. We have work to do. Lisa looked at Helen, who had seen the message too. What do you think he has in mind? Helen asked. I don't know, Lisa said. But knowing Jake, it will be something the galaxy has never seen before. They finished packing, in silence. As they prepared to leave the lab, Helen turned to Lisa one last time. Do you really think we can make them listen? She asked. Lisa thought about Jake's message. She thought about humanity's history of overcoming impossible odds. She thought about every time someone had tried to silence the human voice, and how that voice had always found a way to be heard. Yes, she said. I do. Outside the windows of the station, the stars waited. Somewhere among them, humanity would find its voice. And when they did, the galaxy would have no choice but to listen. Jake Morrison stood in the main conference room of the UHS Discovery, looking at the faces of 23 men and women who represented humanity's best and brightest. They had come from research stations, colonies, and diplomatic posts across human space. All of them had the same question in their eyes. They want to silence us, Jake began, his voice calm but firm. The Galactic Council thinks that if they exclude us from their meetings, we will quietly disappear into the background. They think we will accept being treated like children. Dr. Sam Rodriguez leaned forward in his chair. He was a thin man with thick glasses who spent most of his time working with communication equipment. What are you suggesting, Captain? Jake smiled. I'm suggesting we give them something they never expected. We're going to talk to the galaxy whether they want us to or not. How? Asked Commander Beth Williams from the Luna base station. They control all the official communication channels, every broadcast network, every diplomatic frequency, every trade channel goes through their systems. That's true, Jake said. But they don't control physics, they don't own the electromagnetic spectrum, and they certainly don't understand human creativity. He pressed a button on the table, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed the known galaxy with thousands of small lights marking different star systems. Dr. Rodriguez has been working on something special, Jake continued. Sam, would you like to explain? Sam stood up, adjusting his glasses nervously. For the past 6 months, I've been studying how the aliens communicate across space. They use a very old system, probably thousands of years old. It works, but it's limited. They can only use certain frequencies and they have to follow strict protocols. He touched the holographic display and new lines appeared connecting the human colonies. But we don't have to follow their rules, Sam continued. We can create our own network using frequencies they don't even know exist. I call it the Human Resonance Network. How does it work? Asked Dr. Helen Brooks. Sam's face lit up with excitement. It's based on quantum entanglement communication principles. Instead of sending signals through space the old way, we create connected particles that can share information instantly across any distance. The aliens think this is impossible because their science says it can't be done. But human science says it can, Jake added with a grin. Not just that, Sam said. Once we establish the network, we can broadcast on frequencies that will reach every communication device in known space, every television, every radio, every personal communication unit. They won't be able to stop us without shutting down their entire civilization's communications. The room was quiet for a moment as everyone absorbed this information. You're talking about hijacking the entire galaxy's communication system, said Lieutenant Commander Pete Johnson from Luna Base. I'm talking about giving everyone in the galaxy a choice, Jake replied. Right now they only hear what their governments want them to hear. We're going to give them access to information their leaders have been hiding from them. Dr. Brooks raised her hand. What kind of information? Everything, Jake said. Medical research that could save millions of lives. Technology that could solve energy problems. Stories of human exploration and cooperation. Most importantly, we're going to show them what real democracy looks like. Over the next 3 weeks, the Human Resonance Network began to take shape. Every human colony, research station, and diplomatic outpost became a node in the growing web of communication. Sam Rodriguez worked 18-hour days, installing quantum communication devices and training operators. The first test came on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. Sam sat in his laboratory aboard the Discovery, surrounded by screens and blinking lights. His hands shook slightly as he reached for the activation switch. All stations, this is network control, he said into his microphone. Beginning first network test in 3, 2, 1. He flipped the switch. Across human space, 47 communication nodes came online simultaneously. Data flowed between them at the speed of thought, creating a web of connected consciousness that had never existed before. Luna Base, do you copy? Sam asked. Crystal clear, came Pete Johnson's voice, as clear as if he were in the same room instead of millions of miles away. Mars Colony? We're here, network control, signal strength is perfect. New Denver Colony? Copy that. We're receiving you loud and clear. One by one, every human outpost reported in. The network was working perfectly. But Sam had built more than just a communication system. He had created something that could reach into the alien networks without being detected. As he activated the secondary systems, his screens began showing data from across the galaxy. My God, he whispered. Jake walked into the laboratory just as Sam was staring at his screens in amazement. What is it? Jake asked. It's working better than I hoped, Sam replied. We're not just connected to each other. We're connected to everything. Every alien communication network, every broadcast system, every personal device. We can see it all, and more importantly, we can broadcast to it all. Jake looked at the screens showing the vast web of galactic communications. Can they detect us? No, Sam said with confidence. To them, we're just background noise. Their equipment isn't advanced enough to recognize our signals as anything more than random electromagnetic radiation. Then it's time for the first broadcast. Jake said. That evening, Dr. Helen Brooks sat in her laboratory aboard the Discovery, looking into a camera for the first time in her life. She had practiced this moment, but now that it was here, she felt nervous. Remember, Jake said from behind the camera, you're not talking to the aliens in charge. You're talking to ordinary people who have never heard the human perspective on anything. Helen nodded and took a deep breath. Begin transmission, Sam announced from the control room. Helen looked directly into the camera and began to speak. Hello, she said. My name is Dr. Helen Brooks, and I am a human being. You probably don't know much about my species because your governments have decided that you don't need to hear what we have to say. On thousands of worlds across the galaxy, beings stopped what they were doing to listen to the strange voice coming from their communication devices. I am a doctor, Helen continued. I study diseases and how to cure them. For the past 3 years, I have been working on treatments that could help many different species. But your leaders have decided that you should not benefit from this research because it comes from humans. She held up a small device. This is a cellular regeneration unit. It can heal injuries that your doctors say are permanent. It can cure cancers that have killed millions of your people. It can extend your lives by decades. On the planet Vorthak Prime, a young scientist named Kexnel was watching the broadcast in secret. His people had been told that humans were primitive and dangerous, but the device this human was showing could save his dying sister. Your governments say that humans are too young, too stupid, too dangerous to be part of galactic society. Helen continued. But we have been sharing our discoveries freely with anyone who needed them. We have asked for nothing in return except to be treated with respect. The broadcast continued for 30 minutes. Helen explained human medical advances, showed examples of their technology, and told stories of human cooperation and sacrifice. She spoke in simple words that could be understood by any species. When it ended, Sam looked at his monitoring equipment, in amazement. Jake, you need to see this, he called out. Jake ran to the control room. What is it? The response, Sam said, pointing to his screens. We're getting millions of replies from across the galaxy. Beings are trying to contact us directly. They want to know more. Are their governments trying to stop the transmissions? They're trying, Sam grinned. But they can't. To block our signals, they would have to shut down every communication device in their territories. They can't do that without causing complete chaos. Jake looked at the screen showing the flood of responses from across the galaxy. Beings who had never heard of humans before were now asking questions, offering help, and sharing their own stories. Well, Jake said, we wanted to make our voices heard. I think we succeeded. This is just the beginning, Sam replied. Tomorrow we start the regular broadcasts. By the end of the month, every being in the galaxy will know exactly who humans are and what we stand for. Jake nodded. The aliens had tried to silence humanity by excluding them from official channels. Instead, they had forced humans to create something much more powerful, a direct connection to the hearts and minds of every being in the galaxy. The revolution had begun, and it was being broadcast on frequencies that no government could control. 3 days after the first human broadcast, every intelligence agency in the galaxy was working overtime. Reports flooded in from across known space about strange transmissions that could not be stopped or traced. The beings in charge were becoming very worried. On the planet Alteria Prime, Council Speaker Theiss sat in her private office reading report after report. Her silver skin had lost its usual glow, and her water-like hair hung limp around her shoulders. How many responses did they receive? She asked her aide, a younger Alterian named Vextal. The latest count is over 40 million direct messages, Vextal replied nervously. And the number keeps growing every hour. 40 million, Theiss repeated slowly. In 3 days. Yes, Speaker. Beings from over 300 different worlds have tried to contact the humans directly. Many are asking for the medical technology the human doctor described. Theiss closed her eyes. This was becoming a disaster. The humans were supposed to fade quietly into the background after being excluded from the trade summit. Instead, they had found a way to speak directly to every citizen in the galaxy. What are our scientists saying about their communication method? She asked. They claim it's impossible, Vextal said. Our best engineers insist that the technology the humans are using cannot exist, but the transmissions are definitely real. Meanwhile, aboard the UHS Discovery, Dr. Kate Sullivan was preparing for her first broadcast. She stood in what had once been the ship's secondary conference room, now converted into a broadcasting studio. Camera equipment surrounded her, and screens showed her the faces of billions of beings across the galaxy who would be watching. Remember, Jake Morrison said from his position behind the cameras, you're not trying to impress anyone. Just tell them what you've discovered and why. It matters. Kate nodded. She was nervous but also excited. For months she had been working on research that could change the galaxy, but no one outside the human scientific community had been allowed to see it. We're live in 10 seconds, announced Sam Rodriguez from the control room. Kate took a deep breath and looked directly into the main camera. Good evening, Galaxy, she began, using the greeting that Dr. Brooks had made famous. I'm Dr. Kate Sullivan, and I'm calling you from the Mars Research Institute. I'm a scientist, and I want to share something amazing with you. On thousands of worlds, beings gathered around their communication devices. The human broadcasts had become the most popular programming in galactic history, even though their governments had declared them illegal to watch. 3 months ago, we discovered something that your leaders don't want you to know about, Kate continued. We found a way to clean poisoned water using nothing but sunlight and common minerals found on almost every planet. She held up a small device that looked like a simple metal box with a clear tube running through it. This machine can take the most polluted water and make it completely pure in less than an hour. It uses no electricity, produces no waste, and never breaks down. We call it a solar purification unit. On the industrial world of Chromax 7, millions of beings had been dying from contaminated water for decades. Their government had told them that cleaning the water would cost too much money and take too much time. Now they were learning that humans had solved the problem with a device that cost almost nothing to build. Kate continued her presentation, explaining how the device worked in simple terms that anyone could understand. She showed diagrams, demonstrated the process, and even gave away the complete plans for building the machines. We're giving this technology to everyone, free of charge, she said. All you have to do is build it. The plans are being transmitted right now to anyone who wants them. In his secret laboratory on Vorthak Prime, the young scientist Kexnel was frantically copying down the plans. His sister was dying from a disease caused by polluted water. If this human technology really worked, he could save not just her but millions of others. The broadcast continued for an hour. Kate showed other inventions, machines that could grow food in poisoned soil, devices that could generate electricity. From temperature differences, tools that could repair almost any kind of damage to living tissue. When it ended, Sam Rodriguez looked at his monitoring equipment and whistled in amazement. Jake, you need to see this, he called out. Jake ran to the control room. What's happening? We're getting requests for the technical specifications from over 2,000 different worlds, Sam said, pointing to his screens. Scientists, engineers, doctors, even ordinary citizens are asking for more detailed information. Are you giving it to them? Every bit of it, Sam grinned. Complete plans, instruction manuals, even video tutorials. We're uploading everything to the open sections of the Galactic Data Network. On Earth, President Linda Hayes was meeting with her top advisors. The reports coming in from across human space were almost too good to believe. How many alien governments have officially complained about our broadcasts? She asked General Robert Stone, her military advisor. All of them, he replied. Every major power in the galaxy has demanded that we stop transmitting. They're calling it interference with their internal affairs. And how many of their citizens are still watching our broadcasts? The latest estimate is over 6 billion beings across known space, said Dr. Patricia Lane, the head of Human Intelligence Services. The numbers keep growing every day. President Hayes smiled. Then we're doing exactly what we should be doing. Back on the Discovery, Captain Alex Thompson was preparing for his own broadcast. Unlike the scientists who had gone before him, Alex was a soldier and an explorer. His job was to tell the galaxy about human adventures and achievements that their governments had tried to hide. Tonight I want to tell you about something that happened 6 months ago. Alex began when his broadcast started. Something your leaders hoped you would never hear about. He activated a holographic display showing a star map with a single system highlighted in red. This is the Kepler 4R42 system. 6 months ago, the planet Kepler 442b was hit by massive earthquakes that killed millions of beings and left millions more homeless. The Galactic Council met to discuss sending aid. They talked for 3 weeks while people died. Alex paused, letting his words sink in. Humans didn't wait for permission. While your governments were having meetings, we were already there. The holographic display changed to show video footage of human rescue teams pulling survivors from collapsed buildings, human doctors treating the injured, and human engineers rebuilding destroyed infrastructure. We sent 12 ships and 3,000 volunteers, Alex continued. We didn't ask for payment. We didn't ask for political favors. We just went because people needed help. On dozens of worlds, beings watched in amazement as they saw humans working alongside the survivors of the disaster. The images showed humans sharing their food, their medical supplies, and their expertise without asking for anything in return. Your governments finally arrived 4 weeks later, Alex said. They brought officials, paperwork, and promises of aid that would arrive sometime in the future. We brought help that was already working. The broadcast showed before and after images of the disaster areas. Where human teams had worked, cities were being rebuilt, power was restored, and people were returning to their normal lives. This is what humans do, Alex said. When someone needs help, we help them. We don't wait for committees to approve it. We don't worry about whether it's profitable. We just do what's right. By the end of the 3rd week, the human broadcasts had become a daily part of life for billions of beings across the galaxy. They watched Dr. Brooks explain new medical treatments, Dr. Sullivan demonstrate amazing technologies, and Captain Thompson tell stories of human courage and generosity. More importantly, they began to ask questions about their own governments. If humans could develop such advanced technology in just 3 years, why had their own scientists failed to make similar discoveries in thousands of years? If humans could respond to disasters in days, why did their own governments take months to make decisions? On Alteria Prime, Speaker Theiss faced a crisis unlike any in her species' history. Protests had broken out in major cities as citizens demanded access to human technology and closer cooperation with human colonies. The situation is becoming impossible to control, Bextal reported during their daily meeting. Citizens are building the human water purification devices despite our ban on the technology. Our own scientists are secretly working with human researchers. 3 of our colony worlds have formally requested to withdraw from the collective and join the human network. What do our military advisors recommend? Theiss asked. They suggest blocking all communication signals from human space, Vextal replied. It would require shutting down our entire communication network for several days, but it might stop the broadcasts. Theiss considered this option. Without communications, her civilization would be thrown into chaos. Commerce would stop, governments would be unable to coordinate, and millions of beings would be cut off from their families and friends. And after we restore communications? She asked. The humans would probably just start broadcasting again, Vextal admitted. Theiss realized that her government faced an impossible choice. The revolution began on a Tuesday morning on the planet Vorthak Prime. Young scientist Kexnul stood in the main square of the capital city, holding a water purification device he had built using human plans. Around him, thousands of his people gathered to watch. This machine can clean our poisoned rivers, he announced, his voice carrying across the square. The humans gave us the plans for free. Our government has hidden this technology from us for 3 weeks. Prime Minister Zexthul watched from his office window as the crowd grew larger. His 6 eyes focused on the young scientist with growing anger. 3 weeks ago, no one on his world had ever heard of humans. Now they were causing riots. Sir, his aide said nervously, the crowd is demanding that we officially request the human medical technology. They say it could cure the stone sickness that has killed thousands of our people. Never, Zexthul growled. We will not beg primitives. for help. But across the galaxy, other worlds were making different choices. On Proxima Station, the largest trading hub in the Andromeda sector, Administrator Felthen had secretly contacted the human colony on New Denver. "We want to join your network," she told Captain Alex Thompson during a private communication session. "Our people are tired of being told what they can and cannot know." Alex smiled at the screen. "We welcome anyone who believes in free communication and cooperation. But you should know that joining us might make your government angry." "Our government is already angry," Felthen replied. "They're angry that their people are asking questions they can't answer." Meanwhile, on the asteroid mining station Series 7, engineer Rick Palmer was having the worst day of his career. He had been trying to solve a power distribution problem for the past 6 months. The mining equipment needed more energy than the station's reactors could provide, but building new reactors would cost billions of credits. "I just don't understand it," he muttered to himself as he looked at the power flow diagrams on his screen. There has to be a better way. He had been working on the problem for 18 hours straight. His coffee was cold, his back ached, and he was beginning to think the problem was impossible to solve. Then he remembered something Dr. Kate Sullivan had mentioned during one of her broadcasts. She had talked about fusion reactors that could produce massive amounts of energy using very little fuel. The technology seemed too good to be true, but Rick was desperate enough to try anything. He pulled up the technical specifications that the humans had made available on the Galactic Data Network. At first, the designs looked impossible. The fusion process required temperatures and pressures that should have melted any known material. But as Rick studied the plans more carefully, he began to understand. The humans weren't trying to contain the fusion reaction in a solid container. Instead, they were using magnetic fields to hold the superhot plasma in place. It was brilliant and simple at the same time. "It might actually work," he whispered. Rick spent the next 3 days building a small test reactor based on the human designs. He used spare parts from the mining equipment and materials he found in the station's storage areas. When he finally activated the device, he could hardly believe the results. The small reactor produced more energy in 1 hour than the station's main power plant produced in an entire day. And it did it using fuel that cost almost nothing. "This changes everything," Rick said to himself. He was so excited that he forgot about the communication protocols. Instead of reporting his discovery to his supervisors first, he activated the emergency broadcast system that reached every inhabited world in the sector. "This is Engineer Rick Palmer calling from Series 7, he announced. "I've just solved the galaxy's energy crisis." Within minutes, his broadcast was being retransmitted across known space. Scientists, engineers, and government officials listened in amazement as Rick explained how he had used human fusion technology to create unlimited clean energy. "The humans gave us the answer," he said during his impromptu broadcast. "They shared their most advanced technology with everyone, free of charge. While our governments were arguing about whether humans deserve respect, humans were giving us the tools to build a better future." The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Power companies across the galaxy saw their stock prices crash as investors realized that their expensive and polluting energy sources were now obsolete. Environmental groups that had fought for centuries to reduce pollution suddenly had hope that their worlds could be saved. More importantly, ordinary beings began to understand that their governments had been lying to them. The humans weren't primitive or dangerous. They were the most advanced species in the galaxy, and they were sharing their knowledge freely with anyone who wanted it. On Earth, President Linda Hayes was meeting with her cabinet when the reports started coming in. "Madam President," said Secretary of Defense Kevin Carter, "we're receiving formal requests to join the human network from 47 different worlds. That's more than we've received in the entire 3 years since we made first contact." "What kind of worlds?" she asked. "Everything from major industrial planets to small agricultural colonies. Some are offering to share their own technology and resources. Others are asking for help with specific problems." "Any military threats?" she asked. General Stone shook his head. "The opposite, actually. 3 different species have offered to help defend human colonies if we're attacked. They say they want to protect the only source of real scientific progress in the galaxy." President Hayes smiled. It seems that telling the truth and helping others is more effective than military force. But not everyone in the galaxy was happy with the changes. On the planet Alteria Prime, Speaker Theiss was facing the worst crisis in her species' history. The protests are spreading, her aide Vextal reported. Citizens in over 200 cities are demanding that we join the human network immediately. They want access to human technology, and they want our scientists to start cooperating with human researchers. What about the military? Theiss asked. That's the worst news, Vextal said nervously. Admiral Rexdan has informed us that his fleet will not fire on protesters who are demanding access to technology that could save lives. He says his duty is to protect our people, not to protect the government from our people. Theiss realized that her authority was crumbling. For thousands of years, the Alterian collective had maintained power by controlling information and limiting contact with other species. Now the humans had made that impossible. What do our intelligence services say about the human military capabilities? She asked. That's another problem, Vextal replied. According to our analysis, human military technology is at least 50 years ahead of ours. Their ships are faster, their weapons are more powerful, and their defensive systems are nearly impenetrable. If we tried to attack them, we would lose badly. But they have never threatened us, Theiss said thoughtfully. No. In fact, they keep offering to help us. Dr. Brooks sent a personal message yesterday offering to share medical technology that could extend our lifespans by decades. As the crisis deepened, an even bigger threat appeared on the edge of known space. Admiral Susan Clark, commanding the Human Defense Fleet, was the first to detect it. Captain Morrison, she said during an emergency communication with the Discovery, we've got a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting a massive fleet moving toward galactic space from the Andromeda sector. Jake Morrison studied the sensor, data on his screen. How many ships? At least 3,000, Susan replied. They're using technology we don't recognize, and they're not responding to any communication attempts. Are they hostile? Unknown, but they're moving in a formation that suggests military intent. They'll reach the outer colonies in about 2 weeks. Jake realized that the galaxy was about to face its first major external threat in over 1,000 years. The established governments were too busy dealing with internal protests to mount an effective defense. Their military forces were scattered, and their communication systems were in chaos. What are you recommending? Jake asked. We need to coordinate. A defense using the human network, Susan said. It's the only communication system that can reach every inhabited world instantly. We need to unite the galaxy against this threat. But most of the governments still refuse to officially recognize our network, Jake pointed out. Then we'll have to work around them, Susan replied. We'll coordinate directly with individual military commanders, planetary defense forces, and civilian authorities. The human network can reach them all. Within hours, the human broadcast changed from sharing technology and telling stories to coordinating the galaxy's defense. Dr. Rodriguez worked frantically to expand the network's capacity as military commanders from hundreds of worlds began using human communication channels to plan their response. For the first time, in galactic history, species that had never cooperated before were working together. Human tactical expertise, Vorthak manufacturing capabilities, Alterian defensive technology, and dozens of other species' unique strengths were being combined into a unified defense force. The irony was not lost on anyone involved. The governments that had tried to exclude humans from galactic affairs now found themselves dependent on human communication networks to save their civilizations. The invasion fleet from Andromeda arrived on a Thursday morning, Galactic Standard Time. 3,000 massive ships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of known galactic territory, their weapons powered and their intentions clear. Admiral Susan Clark watched from the bridge of her flagship, the UHS Harmony, as the alien vessels took formation. These ships were unlike anything in the galactic database. They were black as space itself, covered in strange symbols that seemed to move and shift when looked at directly. Any response to our communication attempts? She asked her communications officer. Nothing, Admiral. They're not using any known communication frequencies. They're just sitting there like they're waiting for something. Susan activated her personal communicator, connecting directly to the human network. Within seconds, her voice reached every inhabited world in the galaxy. This is Admiral Susan Clark to all forces. The unknown fleet has arrived and taken position in the outer rim. All defensive units report your status. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Voices came through the network from across the galaxy, speaking dozens of different languages, but all using the translation protocols that humans had built into their system. Vorthak Defense Fleet ready, came the voice of Admiral Kexthan, the officer who had replaced the government officials who refused to cooperate. Alterian ship standing by, reported Commander Vextal, who had taken control when Speaker Thys finally resigned in disgrace. Proxima Station defense platforms online, announced Administrator Felthen. One by one, military forces from over 200 worlds checked in. Species that had never worked together before were now coordinating their defenses through human communication networks. But the real surprise came when the unknown fleet finally responded to galactic communications. The transmission appeared on every screen simultaneously, carried by the human network to every inhabited world. The image showed a being that looked almost human, but with golden skin and eyes that glowed with their own light. When it spoke, its voice was beautiful and terrible at the same time. "I am War Leader Zarthex of the Dominion," it announced. "We have come to claim this galaxy for our empire. You have 7 of your days to surrender your worlds and your people to our rule. If you refuse, we will take them by force." The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. On the bridge of the Harmony, Susan looked at her tactical displays. The human fleet consisted of only 47 ships, while the combined galactic defense forces numbered in the thousands. But the ships were scattered across hundreds of star systems, and most of them had never worked together before. "Jake," she said, calling Captain Morrison on the Discovery. "We need a miracle." "We need a plan," Jake replied. "And we need every species to work together like they never have before." Over the next 6 days, something unprecedented happened in galactic history. Using the human network, military commanders from hundreds of worlds began sharing their knowledge, their technology, and their resources. The Vorthak contributed their advanced manufacturing capabilities, building new weapons and defensive systems. The Alterians shared their shield technology, which could protect entire planets from attack. The mining species provided raw materials, while the agricultural world supplied food for the massive defense effort. Most importantly, humans shared their tactical knowledge and their ability to coordinate large-scale operations in real time. Dr. Sam Rodriguez worked around the clock to expand the network's capacity, as millions of beings across the galaxy coordinated the largest military operation in recorded history. "The network is handling over 10 billion communication channels simultaneously," he reported to Jake during one of their brief breaks. "Every ship, every defense platform, every ground unit is connected in real time. It's like the entire galaxy has become one giant military force." On the 7th day, War Leader Zarthex sent another transmission. "Your time is up," he announced. "Prepare to be conquered." The Dominion fleet began to advance toward the inhabited worlds. Their ships moved in perfect formation, their weapons charging with energy that made space itself glow. But they were not facing the divided, chaotic galaxy they had expected to find. Admiral Susan Clark stood on the bridge of the Harmony, surrounded by display screens showing the positions of over 5,000 Allied ships. For the first time in galactic history, every species was working together under a unified command structure. "All units, this is Admiral Clark," she announced over the human network. "Remember, we're not fighting for our governments today. We're fighting for our right to be free, to choose our own futures, and to help each other grow and prosper. Today, we show the universe what the galaxy can accomplish when we work together." The battle began at the outer edge of the solar system. The Dominion ships were powerful, but they had never faced an enemy that could coordinate perfectly across thousands of light years. When Dominion forces attacked the Vorthak home system, they found human ships defending alongside Vorthak vessels. When they tried to destroy the Alterian communication networks, They discovered that the networks were now part of the human system and could not be easily shut down. Most surprisingly, when they attempted to use their standard tactic of turning species against each other by offering special treatment to those who surrendered first, they found that no one was listening. The human network had created bonds between species that could not be broken by threats or bribes. The turning point came when war leader Zarthex himself led an attack on Earth, believing that destroying the human homeworld would break the resistance. But Earth was not defended only by human ships. Vessels from dozens of species surrounded the planet, all working together to protect the world that had given them hope. "This is impossible," Zarthex said during a transmission to his own forces. "How can so many different species work together so perfectly?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Young Kexnul, the Vorthak scientist who had started the revolution on his homeworld, was now serving as a communications officer aboard one of the defense ships. "Because humans taught us something our leaders never understood," he replied over the open communication channels. "They taught us that helping each other makes us all stronger. They showed us that sharing knowledge and working together creates better solutions than fighting and competing." The battle for Earth lasted 3 days. When it ended, the Dominion fleet was in retreat, and war leader Zarthex was requesting terms for surrender. "We have never encountered anything like this," he admitted during the surrender negotiations. "Our intelligence told us that this galaxy was divided into competing empires that could be easily conquered. Instead, we found a unified civilization that fights as one." Admiral Clark accepted the surrender aboard the Harmony. But the most important moment came afterward, when she addressed the galaxy over the human network. "Today we proved something that many thought was impossible," she said. "We proved that different species can work together not just to survive, but to protect each other and to build something better than any of us could build alone." 6 months later, Ambassador Lisa Carter stood once again in the Galactic Council chamber. But this time the massive room looked very different. The rigid seating arrangements had been replaced with a circular design where every species sat as equals. The formal protocols had been replaced with the open communication style that humans had introduced. Most importantly, the chamber was no longer where the important decisions were made. Real discussions happened over the human network, where every citizen of every world could participate in shaping their shared future. Prime Minister Zexthol, who had been re-elected after promising to work with humans rather than against them, approached Lisa after the session. "Ambassador Carter," he said, his voice humble in a way it had never been before, "I owe you an apology. When I said that humans were too young and too chaotic to be part of galactic society, I was wrong." "You weren't entirely wrong," Lisa replied with a smile. "We are chaotic. But sometimes chaos is exactly what a stagnant system needs. You taught us that exclusion makes everyone weaker," Zexthol continued. "When we tried to silence your voices, you created a way for everyone to speak. When we tried to keep you out of our meetings, you built a forum where everyone could participate." Lisa looked around the chamber at the representatives of hundreds of worlds all working together in ways that would have been impossible before humans arrived. "We didn't conquer the galaxy," she said. "We just showed everyone that they already had the power to build something better." Dr. Sam Rodriguez, now serving as the Director of Galactic Communications, watched the proceedings from his control center aboard the Discovery. His screen showed data flowing between billions of beings across thousands of worlds, all connected by the network that had started as a simple attempt to make human voices heard. "Jake," he said to Captain Morrison, who was visiting the communication center, "do you ever wonder what would have happened if they had included us in that first trade summit?" Jake thought about the question for a moment. "Probably nothing," he said finally. "We would have been one voice among hundreds trying to fit into their system instead of building our own. So being excluded was actually the best thing that could have happened."